Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy, about
I'm so excited to have you. You are our first guest for our new season of Power Lunch. I'll do a quick intro for the 2 to 4 to 5 people who don't know you. Youngest franchisee of Applebees and Del Taco, board of directors for Famous Dave's, president and CEO of Gala Capital Partners. All right, let me take more breath. Chairman of Dunn Brothers Coffee, Muya, Rusty Tacos, and more. One of our earliest investor, Anand Gala. How you doing, sir?
I am great today, Nabeel. It's great to talk to you. Thank you for having me on your inaugural first podcast. It's exciting. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. Hey, we usually do lunch during these things, and I did not have a Muya burger. Listen, I'm loyal to my customers. You know, Applebee's. You know, you're a franchisee at 25, so I figured I'd get some Applebee's. So that's what I'm having for lunch today.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right, let's kick it off. We have a couple of minutes. For the few people that don't know you, you were a franchisee of Applebee's at 25. How does one become a franchisee of Applebee's at 25?
You know, it was a little bit of dumb luck. I was looking for an opportunity to get involved in, and I came across a brand that at the time I had not heard of. There were very few locations, maybe less than a dozen in California. And I thought it was interesting. I came out of QSR. I was looking for something different. This thing, casual dining, was on the horizon. And so I gave them a call and ended up meeting with their then CEO, Abe Gustin.
Okay.
And he said, look, I just want to get to know you and I want to know your character. Come and meet me. So I did. And within 30 minutes, he said, look, I like you. And you got a lot of experience. You grew up in the business. Let's make it happen. And he did. And he was a man true to his word. And I really had a great time up until we sold that business in 2014. So it was great.
That's amazing. You know, he's a legend. What was one lesson you learned from him?
You know, the one lesson I learned from him was pace yourself, because all of us as young entrepreneurs all want to eat the world as quickly as possible. We want to achieve massive success very, very quickly. And what he taught me is everything will come to fruition. Everything will get done. Pace yourself. Don't try to be in a rush to get everything done at once.
Which is such great advice for the current climate where, you know, you're a tech investor as well. You know, I'm sure you're telling it to all of your founders, such as myself, which is, you know, make sure you have runway, make sure you're not burning too fast, make sure you can get through this to get to the other side. So what a timely advice for today. Yeah. You and I have a lot in common. You know, we're both brown. That's one thing. We both, you know, had some, you know, I dropped out of med school. You were planning to go to med school. How does one go from med school to being a restaurateur? What happened?
You know, I had the blessing and the curse of growing up in a franchise family. And so my mom was the second franchisee ever for Jack in the Box.
Oh, wow.
And so from the age of 8, 9 years old, on vacations and holidays and weekends, there was no daycare. So she'd take me and my brother to the restaurant and we would work. And so, you know, I hated it until I realized I loved it. And, you know, it happens in a flash.
What did you guys do? Were you guys servers, hostess? What job did you guys do?
Well, you know, at 8, 9 years old, I couldn't even see over the front counter. So I was just too short. So she flipped over a milk crate and made me stand on the milk crate and put a uniform on me and taught me how to use the register. And then I did, you know, other things that I was capable of doing. I'd clean up the dining room. I'd wipe down tables. I'd clean the bathrooms. I'd restock shelves up in the storage area. You know, whatever I could do. I was obviously too young to work the fryer or the grill, but eventually got there and learned every position, worked the drive-through, you name it.
That's amazing. The number of labor laws she has broken. Even
No. It was all legal back then. It was all legal.
It was legal. Were you nervous? Were you nervous on like, hey, did you bring some of that to your kids? Have you done anything similar? Made them do some of that hard labor that raised you to be, you know, this incredible force?
So, you know, I think it builds a tremendous amount of character. It teaches you values, teaches you a great deal of respect for the people that work in service industries. And so all of my kids, my brother's kids, they've all been required to work at least a full summer or longer in these businesses. So that they understand, you know, you realize the value of a dollar, you realize how hard people work to earn a living, or just even whether it's a living or whether it's pocket money, whatever it is. But it's hard work, you know, and there's a role for everybody and we should respect them all.
That is incredible. I'm sometimes, you know, nervous that, you know, if I do well, because I came from nothing, like if I do well, how do I still embody and make sure I take some of the lessons I've learned from the restaurant industry and take it to my kids. And one of the things is like they have to work summers in restaurants. Like that industry raised me, and I learned so much about humans and hospitality and business. Everything I've learned is at a restaurant.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of industries that do a great job of teaching people all of these things, builds a lot of character, whether it's construction, whether it's retail, whether it's restaurants, anything where you are hustling like crazy. I think it teaches them all of these values and builds a tremendous amount of character, and they really appreciate what they have. So I think you'll do just fine. Don't worry about it. Absolutely.
If not, I'll call you.
Please.
So I did call you a couple of years ago and somehow convinced you to invest in Lunchbox. And very early, you were one of our first, earliest investors. Any memory of why you decided to invest in such a tiny upstart?
It helps that you're brown, but really that aside, honestly, it was your tenacity. It was your hustle. You were relentless. And candidly, there's not a lot of people that you find with that level of passion, energy. You were essentially willing to run through virtual walls just to somehow get a hold of me. I think you must have spammed me at least 15 or 20 times within 1 week. And somehow we connected. And honestly, it was that level of energy that came through that you were going to do everything in your power to make something happen. It's rare that you find people with that level of energy, not blind confidence, not ego, but energy and willingness to listen, willingness to learn. And we all make mistakes. And then as I've watched, as you've grown the business, you've had to make a pivot here or there. These are all learning experiences. And what I tell lots of the CEOs that we invest in is that when you're doing a startup, you will literally build up and tear down this business 5 or 6 times in the first 3 years. And just when you think you've got it figured out, nope, you've got to pivot, you've got to do something different, and you'll end up tearing it back down and building it right back up. So it's the ability to persevere through these difficult times, these challenges, these miscalculations, or to lean into something that is working really, really well and to see it as that and not let prior baggage or experiences, make you too conservative, just having that right balance. That's what really, really attracts me to founders and CEOs like yourself.
You made my day. I was hoping for something about Lunchbox. I could clip it and use it in testimonials, but this is unusable, but I will be rewatching for myself on bad days. Thank you. I got to ask you something. You said something that, as you've watched me make mistakes and pivots, one of the things we did that was really hard last year was, we, made our team smaller to go ahead and focus and extend our burn and really focus on the few things that were working. It has been the most incredible pivot looking back at it today. Back then, it felt like hell. Any similar experiences in your life that, you're like the sky is falling, but you made it through? Any lesson we can take from any of your stories or your experience?
Yeah, there have been too many cycles that I've been through, candidly. I mean, when we were involved in Jack in the Box, we went through a time where there was an E. coli outbreak within Jack in the Box. And there were a couple of people that passed away. And we saw sales in the brand drop 40% overnight, even though we were, 1,000, 2,000 miles away from the place that it happened. It didn't matter. The brand was tainted, and how the brand recovered from that gave me a great deal of experience. Granted, it was when I was much younger. Then again, there was the .com bubble and it blew up, and many of our stores were up in Northern California, and you would see people pull back dramatically just overnight as all these .com companies started failing. And then again, you have 9/11. And then after that, you have the great financial crisis, the GFC. And then again, then you have COVID. And so it's been one after another. And what it has taught me is that this too shall pass. And, when you need to make changes, you need to make them, and you should probably make them quickly. And you should probably make them a little deeper than you think you need to. You should get uncomfortable. Because candidly, it's better to make changes maybe a little more aggressively. And if you've overshot, you can always build back up. But if you undershoot, then you're burning and burning and burning. And it's difficult. It is very emotional, but I've also learned how to compartmentalize and make sure that it doesn't take over my life. That doesn't mean that it doesn't affect me. Right. All of these changes and these choices and these decisions that have to be made by leaders are very emotional. And I've also realized that others will not understand what we go through as leaders. And that's okay. That's okay. That's why we're the leaders. We've been chosen by, somehow by the grace of God. And that's our role. And we have to do the best we can.
Wow. I feel like Power Lunch is usually 5-10 minute podcast. I think we might have changed the format for you for next time, because you have been sharing such insightful stuff. And you know what's funny? I did not realize you went through the E. coli Jack in the Box era as well, but you've been through so many different cycles, and so you're not worried about this. You see a pattern. You have a pattern recognition by now of how to deal with this.
I would say so. None of them are ever exactly the same, but they sure do rhyme. They're very similar. And so you can learn from experiences in the past and realize that, there's a cycle to this, and we are probably in a 18-month cycle, roughly. Could be a little longer, could be a little less. My crystal ball doesn't work perfectly, but these things do have a cycle. And they're, making sure that businesses have a strong balance sheet is really critical. I think those are decisions that you have to make. It's difficult to bring people back if there's no business to bring them back to. And so you have to make sure that the business also survives. So those are the choices that need to be made, and I think you're making good ones.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for such great advice. I'm going to take that offline and take it to heart. I'll ask you this: you are president and CEO of some of the most leading hospitality food service companies out there, right? You have Brother Coffee Rusty, Tacos, Moya, so many of them. If I was following you around for a day with a camera and vlogging you, right? Like you call me, you're like, Nabeel, I think I want to start vlogging. What does your day look like? Can you take us through your day? Yeah,
well, first and foremost, my day starts with family. And I always make sure that I'm helping my daughter get ready for school, get her lunch ready, take her to school. Because if you can set your foundation correctly with what is most important to you in your life, then the rest of the day is easy. So I always start the day with family. After that, I'll hit the office, or if I'm working from home, a couple of meetings. But it's really just update calls. Let's make sure where are we at, different projects, different brands, and getting oriented with that. It's probably split up about 15 to 20% each for the different brands, and then another, call it 15 to 20% for things that are maybe more strategic, or if we're looking at new opportunities, or if there's a special project that we're working on that may span multiple brands, or even if we're just working on our people, our team, and our culture. And so that's usually how I break it up. And then I usually end the day, and probably about 3 days a week, I do pickup for my daughter as well from school. And that way I get a chance to end the day with what is most important, which is family. You've always talked about family. We've in the past talked about your dad and the driving distance, and me visiting my parents every Sunday. I have to visit my mom tonight. She is flying back from California, so I need to visit her tonight. If I don't visit her once a week, I'm accused of, oh, you don't love me anymore. You've gotten too old. You're a big man now. So the guilt trip, so I have to I have to go visit her tonight. So you know exactly how that is. I do, but you should also, when you're there, granted, she'll be tired and she'll not have been home very much, but you should say, Mom, I really missed this thing that you make for me. Yeah, exactly. So that's just give her a little bit of that, like, oh my God, you were gone and it wasn't for long, but I sure did miss this, which you always make for me once a week and send it home with me. And that'll make her feel so good. Yeah, well, it's easy because it's so true. Like, she is my favorite. Like, everything she makes is my favorite food in the world. So it'll come from a sincere place. But very good tip. I'll use it tonight. Absolutely. Okay, last question. Full circle. The 8-year-old kid on top of the milk crate, trying to see across the host stand. What one advice you'd give that kid if you were able to visit him? Wow, that's a great question. If I had to go back to my younger self, don't worry about the fact that you're the smallest kid in your class. Don't worry about all of these things. Focus on the things that really bring you happiness, that bring you passion, and that you love how to do them. You love doing them, period. And even though, so for me, I was a math and science kid. I was really into sci-fi and all those things. And that was not cool when I was in school. It was, I didn't play a lot of sports, but I did play a couple. And so it didn't feel very cool. But in the end, I realized all of those things ended up being great for me because they taught me how to think a certain way or do a certain thing. And they really helped me explore my passions. Those are things that I think are far more accepted today than they were when I was a kid. And so I would tell my younger self, like, you're doing great. You're going to be just fine. Lean into those things that you really love to do because it's going to work for you.
That is incredible advice. I am 31 now. I fought a good chunk of my time when I first came to the US when I was 15, trying to not be brown. And then in my mid 20s and till now, I'm trying to figure out how I can be a little bit more brown. Like, who am I? Where do I come from?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to connect. And because of put some distance between me and figuring it out, I'm having a hard time getting back into the community, but it's been so much fun to get back into it. So I guess the advice is, stay true to yourself and time will catch up with you.
Yeah, exactly. It all works itself out and you'll end up being the best self you can be. It's great.
This was such a great conversation and so thoughtful, and you are a true inspiration to everyone here in the hospitality community, but myself as a brown dude trying to figure it out in the restaurant and tech community. So thank you for such a thoughtful conversation, for your time. You've always been so generous with your time and your advice.
Absolutely. Listen, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.
Take care.
To fly with me. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox. Tube socks, boy, about to pop the lunchbox.